As you see it, there are three main scenarios that could play out here. The first one is essentially that Israel decides to go it alone.
Correct. So if the president decides to let the Israelis do it by themselves, if he's comfortable, he thinks they have the capabilities to do enough damage that he's comfortable with the after effects of it, this is what it would look like. So in terms of Fordo, you really have two options. The Israelis previously launched a raid into Syria about 200 kilometers north into a chemical weapons facility. So they put commandos on the ground before. That's an extreme option with a lot of risk, obviously putting people on. But as you can see, the tunnel entrance is here. So we got them here, right, here, and here. Right, so if you're going to send folks inside into the mountain into a deep buried facility as a render safe mission, kind of difficult.
Yeah, but I mean, how defended is this area, though? I mean, are there Iranians on the ground?
Sure.
What else is there?
So, I mean, there's plenty of defenses that are here. This was specifically built as a deep buried facility to withstand conventional attacks, either from a ground or an air raid.
Yeah.
So, and you also have what we'd call fatal funnels or choke points, because if there's any guns inside, those are the only entrance points, and that's where they're pointing. So it's a very difficult mission set for anybody performing it.
Yeah.
No.
So the second option is that the United States does a limited attack, and it sounds like from our reporting that is what the United States is trying to figure out. What is the limited option here?
Right. So if it's limited option, so if it wasn't the ground raid and the Israelis, those same tunnels, if they don't bomb them to collapse the tunnels and the air shafts so that they can't get inside, requiring constant suppression, then it becomes the U.S. option, right? There's really only one aircraft that's capable of carrying the 30,000-pound bunker-busting bombs required to do the mission, and it's the B-2 stealth bombers that you see here. So round trip to the United States with refueling, provided that none are forward deployed, probably multiple sorties involved, but that's realistically what we're looking at in order to do enough damage to set the program back.
Yeah, and the B-2s, Israel doesn't have them.
They don't have them, and that's why it requires the U.S., and they can't deliver as big of a blow from the air.
Yeah, so talk us through option 3. This is essentially looking at the region and saying not just this one facility, but let's take it all out. Like, what are we talking about in terms of that?
Sure. I think this is the least likely option to start with. If the president makes a decision to hit Fordo, his political base doesn't support, a war. He certainly doesn't want to collapse the government there and deal with nation and state building, which is what we saw in Iraq and Afghanistan. But if we did go in and decide to strike, right, what do the targets look like outside of that? You can see the nuclear facilities here with the nuclear symbols, and then you've got regime targets, and then you've got oil refineries along there, which is really far expanded at that point. It's more likely that would be. But that would realistically probably only happen if they decide to go after U.S. forces in the region. So we have between Qatar, the UAE, we've got major air bases. U.S. Central Command has a forward headquarters at Al Udeid Air Force Base in Doha. We've got major bases in Kuwait. But what's probably the most likely would be the U.S. bases here, outside of Baghdad, up north in Kurdistan, and then here in Syria along the border, which is what everybody's predicting they would try to hit. So the U.S. has been surging assets in. F-22 squadron came in today into the U.K., all kinds of fighter assets and air defense systems to protect U.S. forces that are there. Ships were moved out of the harbors, and aircraft that were not in hardened bunkers have already been moved out. It is very clear the U.S. is preparing for a potential option to strike at this point.
Yeah, a potential option to strike, but they do not, it seems like, want a scenario where all of this is at play with
Certainly
Iran.
not. No, I think that's what they're trying to avoid. And everything to date from CENTCOM has largely been defensive in nature to protect forces that are there. And there's a lot of dual citizens. People don't realize that there are millions of citizens that are potentially traveling through the region through Europe, and those that are dual citizens of Israel and other countries.
Try to flee Tehran, and you're lucky if the roads are this empty. A 4-hour wait for gas, hospitals overflowing, people living in tents by the roadside, one doctor told CNN. Everyone who can is leaving, with a suitcase, they said, empty-handed or carrying their babies. On the way out, temperatures in the 90s, cold water passed around. Government advice given to those caught in strikes while driving out reads, if you can, get out, seek refuge, and turn your back to the blast. If you're stuck in the gridlock, unbuckle, recline the chair back, cover your head with your hands. This baker's brother died in the strikes. He learned 20 minutes before this video was shot. His response, to keep working. In the north, where most have fled, the flour ration has been raised, owing to bread shortages, official media said. What they left behind is a world upturned. This yellow building's slant a taste of ordinary lives bent beyond recognition. In Tehran, where 2 days ago screams echoed. Now the streets quieter, vacant, whether made so by Netanyahu and Trump's warning for the capital to evacuate or the constant blasts overhead and around. Night after night, these barrages continue, Israel and Trump now saying they control the skies, and Iran's strikes against Israel seem lesser. Families crammed underground, normal here gone, tomorrow panicked and unknowing.
You might have heard about bunker busters. It's the type of weapon that can be used to attack a site like Fordo, a site where Iran is enriching uranium. It's buried about 300 feet beneath the ground. There's only one weapon in the world that can destroy a place like Fordo, and there's only one plane in the world that can carry that weapon. That weapon is the GBU-57, a sophisticated bunker buster called the Massive Ordnance Penetrator, or MOP. The MOP is 20.5 feet long, weighs about 30,000 pounds, and it can strike a deeply buried target after multiple impacts with pinpoint accuracy. And the only plane that can carry it is the B-2. Israel doesn't have any of these planes or any of these bombs, and that's why they want the U.S. to join their aerial campaign against Iran.
We've been both hearing and seeing anti-aircraft fire in the skies over Tehran. Also, some pretty loud thuds could be heard as well. It's unclear whether or not those are possible airstrikes or maybe even interceptions by the air defense forces here. But one thing that is clear going through the streets of Tehran is that they are pretty empty, and most of the shops are also closed. As we were driving into the city, we did see a decent amount of traffic going in the other direction, trying to get out of town. And we know that a lot of people have left town since the Israeli airstrikes began here. But at the same time, the traffic was still somewhat flowing. One of the other things that we noticed as well, and we did drive through a substantial part of Iran to get to this place, is that in many other places, it appears to be almost business as usual. There were a lot of cars on the road. There were factories that appeared to be working. Also a lot of trucks that were driving on the street as well. And folks that we spoke to on the ground were basically saying they were just trying to get by and continue the way that they had been before. Nevertheless, of course, people here in Tehran understand that the situation for them could be dangerous, and many have actually left the city. And this comes as the Iranians are vowing to fight on. The supreme leader of Iran, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, he came out and said that Iran and the Iranian nation would never surrender. Of course, what the Iranians have been doing is, in the face of the airstrikes that have been coming in, have been lobbing their missiles towards Israeli territory.